Alrighty. Welcome back to Dr. Nick Lenz Doctor Who Reviews, episode 16. This is doing the very first third Doctor story from his final season. Yeah, overall, this is the 70th story released from the 11th season show. Yep, this is The Time Warrior. And you can see with the cover that we have two debuts here. One, of course, is Sarah Jane Smith, played by the late Elizabeth Sladen, and the Centaurans. Yep, the Centaurans. I believe this is also the first time the Doctor had gone to a medieval setting in the color stuff at this point. Yeah, he did. I think he did it a few times in the black and white era, but the color, I think this was the first time that I could think of. Yes, I could think of. Now, this one basically has a... Now, this, of course, is Third Doctor's era, so units here. But they're only seen briefly at the beginning of episode 1. And then they'll show up again. Yeah, they're seen just for the, first portion of, episode 1, and that's it. Yeah, the Brigadier is seen here just for the opening episode, and that's last see of him. Yeah, it's interesting though. I think this was not exactly the first time the unit been able to play a minor role in the story. Yeah. Excuse me. This was actually the third time this has actually happened. Where unit itself basically plays a very minor role. Yes, next time we'll be until Seas of Doom, which at that point was the last time that the unit would actually appear in Classic Who. Yeah, that'll be the last time they appear up until Battlefield. After that, they'll appear again to a couple episodes of Ninth Doctor's era. Yep. Now, as for this particular story itself, released from December 15th, 1973 to January 5th, 1974. So, basically, the reason why the Doctor is, the Centaurans, there's technically one Centaur in this whole story. Lenz. He is, of course, referenced in the second Centauran story, the Centauran Experiment, which is only 2 episodes compared to this one, which is 4. Yes. Now, the Centaurans do have something in common with the Ice Warriors, in that they only made appearances in 4 classic Doctor Who stories. Only 4. Yeah, they're the only Doctor Who alien who's done this. I mean, look at the Autons. They appeared twice. The Great Intelligence, of course, the Yeti, appear a couple times. While basically Papa recurring villains like the Dalek, the Cyberman, and the Master, they appear a boatload of times. But the Centaurans? No, only appearing about 4 times. They appear more in modern day Who than they do in classic Who. Yes, and as far as I can tell, there's no real reason for this at all. Not that I've heard anyways. Of course, the way they introduced Sarah Jane Smith is quite odd. She just walks in a room and oh yeah, I'm this particular person. And the Doctor easily figures out that she's not this person, even though her last name is Smith. That part is true. Yeah, she actually took her aunt's, her aunt's name basically posed as her. Yes. Let's see. The thing with her aunt is, and this you might think is quite interesting, her aunt herself has never made an appearance in classic Doctor Who. Yeah, she's never made an appearance. I have heard that there was a planned appearance by her in the aborted spinoff K9 Company, which featured Sarah Jane Smith. I've watched it. It's okay. Yeah, but it's not what I'm talking about. It's by far one thing people don't usually talk about when it comes to classic Doctor Who. Is, of course, K9 Company. It's got a weird song, and it was released back in the early 80s, several years after Sarah Jane Smith stopped appearing on Classic Who. Yeah, and here's the thing about Sarah Jane Smith. Up until New Who, with the exception of one other companion, Sarah Jane Smith is the longest running companion ever in the history of Doctor Who at this point in time. She was the companion for 3 years. Basically, she came on at the start of of course, the story here with the start of the final season of John Pertwee's John Pertwee's run. And basically, she later left. I believe it was like just a couple episodes into her, I think it was her 4th season of that show. Because basically she left in the episode The Face of Fear. Oh, excuse me, The Hand of Fear in season 14. Which is second episode, season 14. Yeah, so pretty much it's like 2 full seasons and then basically 2 stories into Tom Baker's 3rd season of the show. That's when she finally left the series. Probably because she felt as though she needed to leave. The only other companion to stay this long was Tegan in Peter Davison's run, where she stayed for pretty much almost the entire run, with the exception of the last 2 stories, which is quite interesting. It makes her one of like a few companions who actually have been there from almost from the start up until the very end. The other companion that's done this has been Jamie from the Patrick Troughton years, who appeared all but one Patrick Troughton story, and that was his first one. Yep. So basically, the story of this one is that there's these now the Doctor is summoned to this. Basically, he's brought this base, and he, of course, his TARDIS is there. TARDIS is basically like very run down. Looks like it needs to do a paint job. Yes, and basically, of course, this one is done by Robert Holmes, who basically is going to run a lot of really good Doctor Who stories. Yes, like this guy was a prominent writer on Doctor Who. Like, this guy stayed on for quite some time. Like, I think like the first one he did was, let's see. No, it's not that one. What was the first one he worked on? Because he worked on several stories. It's not that one. Let's see. I'm just looking here. Let's see. Okay, here we go. His first story he worked on was The Chronotons, which was the story from the second Doctor's run, and he was a prominent writer on the series. Yes. Let's see. Let's see. Like, I'm trying to think. I think, was Deadly Assassin the last one he worked on? No, it wasn't that one. I'm just trying to look here. Let's see. Let's see. Here we go. Okay. So the last story technically he worked on was Trial of the Time Lord. These are the stories he worked on. Chronotons, Space Pirates, Spirit 3, we'll have to discuss this one. Terror of the Autons, Carnival of Monsters, this story, Ark in Space, Pyramids of Mars, really interesting one. The Brain of Morbius, the first episode of The Hand of Fear, The Deadly Assassin, The Talons of Wei Chiang, The Sunmakers, The Rebus Operation, The Power of Krull, Caves of Valley, the last story featuring Peter Davison, The Two Doctors, and like 5 episodes of Trial of the Time Lord. So yeah, wrote on and off since like from 1960. He wrote 73 episodes, which, yeah, that's a lot. So you at least got praised the fact you have a good writer here. This is what was probably, I don't know if this is one of his most well-known works he did for Doctor Who, but this was a really good story. The only thing I was not really a big fan of was basically Sarah early on in the story, or I basically think, oh yeah, she's on a film set. I'm like, okay, whatever. So basically, the Doctor is not the first thing you see here. The first thing you see is the Centauran when he basically lands on Earth in the Middle Ages. Why the heck he landed here this time period, I don't know. But he says the reason why he landed on Earth was because his ship was, of course, is actually explained, I think in episode 3. He was actually shot. His ship was basically fired upon by Rutan fighters. Yes, this is the first mention of the Rutans. Yes, the war between the Rutans and the Centaurans, which, from what I heard by the time of Sarah J. Adventures, apparently it's been going on for like about 10, like almost like, oh my gosh, it must have been about 10,000 years. It was a non-stop war, and the fact that Centaurans are notorious for loving the art of war. They just love combat. And they don't care how many casualties they have. They can basically spring out more. As explained in the follow-up Centauran story, the Centauran experiment and why they look so alike, because it revealed they're all freaking clones. Yes, clones of a alien known as Centaur. Yes. I don't think he's actually referred to as the leader of the Centaurans. And apparently the Centaurans have one gender. All male. Yeah, it's also a little tube on the back of their neck. Yeah, that becomes a particular plot point when it comes to them later on. So he crashes. Of course, he basically shows off his mighty helmet. This silly pose he does there on the cover of this DVD. Yeah, he does that in episode 4. This weird fighting pose. I'm like, what the heck is this? Yes. So, excuse me. So he volunteers, he just steps out of his spaceship. Yeah, he just steps out. And basically the door on his ship opens like a regular door. Yeah, his spaceship is basically like a big, humongous ball. A metal ball, mind you. And so explained by the doctor, every time the ship basically lifts off, there's an explosion. A big, humongous explosion. Destroys whatever it's near you. Yep. So basically, he basically asked for, a place to stay and time to fix his ship. And it's explained in the final episode. Apparently, this local lord just happened to spot this like, oh look, it's a falling star. It's a spaceship. Yeah, it's this weird light effect they have period his window, and apparently he's thirsty for combat because he has sour wine and raw and terrible meat. Now, I'm not a wine drinker, but even I would agree, sour wine probably would not taste very good. So, he and his men, I'd say he's got about 15, 16 men, it could be 20. Yeah, basically it's like a small squad, basically has, holding this castle that he apparently killed the occupants of, like everybody. Also, he has the women treated as slaves. Because time period, mind you. Yep. So, yeah. And of course, excuse me. So, need a place to stay. So, excuse me. One thing that's actually not explained is how the heck they got his spaceship inside this room. What did they do? Take this thing apart? Did they remove the wall? Never explained. It just magically appears in this room that he's using. Oh yeah, and it's also these scientists, of course, he's responsible because of a device he has. They apparently pulls people from the 20th century. Don't know why 20th century, but probably a costing measure. And then we see a doctor giving a room. Like, okay, nice fancy room. And apparently about the scientists disappearing. Yeah, why they're disappearing, it's not explained in the beginning, but it's explained later. Just so they have fixed. So basically, they have us fix the spaceship. And apparently, get this, about 2 million pounds. This is of course the currency worth of equipment are taken. Which I'm thinking, okay, that kind of makes sense. bring people in the 20th century to take care of them. Okay, fine. So they just basically use their aunt's ID to get inside, and she meets the doctor. Very pleasant conversation these two have. Then pretty much like, well, meet Rutus, I think his name is. Yeah, he's a scientist who apparently wears glasses. Yep, wears glasses, and apparently I can't see what without them. Okay. And then he just magically taken without his glasses. I'm like, really, Lynx? You probably didn't notice the fact he was not wearing glasses. Also, it's later revealed that the scientists he's captured are hypnotized, with the exception of Rutan for some reason. Yeah, they say he's got a really strong mind. My guess is the reason why he probably hasn't freed, because they probably need someone to help the doctor. So, these people are hypnotized, and these people haven't anything to eat, drink, or had anything to or even slept in days. Heck, there's even a couple of senior collapsing. How long? I don't know. It's kind of weird. They don't really explain it. So, Sarah thinks that the doctor's behind it, but he really is. He later explains later that he's not behind it at all. So, Sarah Jane just stows away in the TARDIS. Yep. By the way, how the heck the TARDIS got in the room? Never shown. Just, oh look, it's a TARDIS, right in the room. Okay, one of a few times, like, oh, we have the thing associated with just magically pop up in the room. By the way, there's lots of stuff related to magic in this thing, despite the fact it's all freaking science. Oh, by the way, the Centaur's weapon is a magic wand. Like, ding, kill you with a magic wand. Apparently, that's how the Centaurans do combat, with magic wands. Wow. Oh, in case you're curious, though, do they still use this thing in the New Who? Yes. Yes, they do. I don't really know why. It's by far a very lazy attempt with alien weapon. Oh, look, a magic wand. Oh, look, there's this thing basically, this little minigun he uses to basically unlock people's minds in order to ask questions. I'm like, okay, that seems quite useful. Yeah, it just knocks him out. Like, okay. Yeah, it's kind of weird. Yeah, and Lynx, of course, makes them like muskets. Well, basically rifles that are equivalent to like early 20th century weapons. Yeah. So, this guy called Edward. I don't know if he's a real person or not. So, makes the weapons, and of course, she also makes him a robot. Yes, a robot. Who suspiciously is wearing the armor the Centauran is wearing. But the helmet that he's wearing is basically the helmet you see in medieval England. Yes, so... Oh yeah, one other thing that's revealed in this story. The name of Doctor's home planet. Because the Time Lords made the first appearance in the final second Doctor story, War Games. This story here is the first time they've had the name of the planet. Gallifrey. Yep, that's in the planet, Gallifrey. And apparently, the Doctor has kind of met Centaurans before, and he says, unfortunately. Yeah, that's a really good one there. Like, okay, when the heck has the Doctor ever met the Centaurans part of the story? Because this is their Navy appearance. He probably researched about them. He may have run them off screen, but it's never really brought up here exactly when the heck that happened. And of course, they even have, like, one point in the episode, they have a commando raid. Yes, a medieval-style commando raid. He would get beaten up, and of course, Doc taken captive back to Sir Edward. And it turns out, nope, he's basically not a bad guy. He's a good guy. So, Sarah Jane explained to Sarah Jane who he is, and in fact, he's a Time Lord. Doesn't explain this to Joe, I remember, and I don't think he explains this to... He may explain this, I think he may have previously explained this to the Brigadier. Also, if you're curious, like, wait, didn't the first story of the very first story of John Pertwee have basically not used his TARDIS? Why is he TARDIS now? Well, that's actually explained in the Three Doctors. Where thanks to that story, that's how he got the ability to time travel again. Okay, perfectly fine. And by the way, like, okay, we have an archer in the episode who actually is a pretty good shot, and basically this guy appears in this episode. His name is Oh, this like minor villain name. Aegon. Heck, there's even a guy called Blood Axe. Yes, Blood Axe. And I don't know if this basically this Edward Essex basically is the same guy who became King of England. I highly doubt it. Yeah, it's a very somewhat interesting story related to it. Related to this thing. Yeah, the Ingrar and Blood Axe, they're not that interesting of characters. Like, oh, they're just bloodthirsty because they're part of the Middle Ages. Sir Edward is okay of a character. His wife, I mean, the way he looks for, like, his wife, like, Sir Edward looks like he's presumably in his 60s. Lady Eleanor looks like she's a little bit younger. I'd say about 10 years younger. I'd say she's presumably in her 50s, I'd say. Yeah, we have also Sarah Jane disguised herself as basically, well, Wonder Woman at the time. Basically wearing the same outfit that Lady Eleanor is wearing. Though she becomes a cook. Yeah, Sarah Jane is not enough for cooking, so she slips this little drug in the actual stew. Yeah. And of course, the guys get knocked out thanks to basically this knockout stuff that basically the Doctor uses. Of course, fends up basically a castle siege, a very sloppily put together castle siege. Like, oh, look, the thing is well defended. Retreat tomorrow. And I'm thinking, really? And you can't take a close look at the fact that, or at least, I don't know, walk up to the freaking wall. The fact that this place has only got 10 old men. Well, older men. Presumably these guys, when look at them, these guys look like they could have been in their 40s be old, which not really. After Lynx himself fires one of the guns off, yeah, and then they proceed to bring out the ladders. Yes, this is actually stereotypical 101 castle siege. Use these particular ladders. If you ever seen Lord of the Rings, yes, they use the same things there too. So very standard here, except the way these ladders are put together. It's almost like these people don't know how to do the standard pioneering. Like, basically, these things are not tied together very well. These things can easily fall apart. Like, wow, this is so sloppy. Like, and then they're basically run away because of a stink bomb. Yes, a freaking stink bomb chasing away. Yep. Oh, by the way, the robot, usually here, yeah, one time it goes berserk because Doctor fires the control off and then he puts on the armor in order to fool the guy who rules the place. And eventually, of course, they do free out the scientists. They sort of deprogram them and they're all sent right to the research center. If you're curious what happens next, it's not explained in the very next episode. Nope. They don't really do this very much. Like, the very next story is the infamous invasion of the dinosaurs. Yeah, that is the next story that comes right after this one. Yeah, of course, that was very infamous for how bad the special effects were in that one. Though it was technically the second story of the run. Well, of this season anyway. Season only had like 1, 2, 3, 4. Only about 5 stories. Yes, 5 stories. I actually have the third story here. I'll probably view it in a future video, but man. It's almost like, wow, we have really bad special effects this one. The special effects for this particular story are not bad per se. Oh, how is Lynx defeated? Well, this, of course, after we combat with the Doctor, of course, that was expected. And then he's taken out by a local archer, the one who's basically in this episode. He fires an arrow into his little pipe in the back of his neck. And then, of course, he falls over. Of course, all the scientists are sent back to the future anyways. So the Doctor, the Archer, and Sarah Jane go outside, and the place explodes. Like, the whole castle's destroyed, along with the weapons. And then the Doctor and Sarah Jane just go right back into TARDIS. And, yeah, everything's a hunky-dory. And when they get back to the present, it just gets so weird. with the invasion of the dinosaur stuff. It is by far one of the most weirdest stories I've ever seen. Also, I thought this was really kind of weird for the next story. The first thing is all black and white. Yeah. But the first story of John Pertwee's last year on the run, it's not that bad. I consider this one one of the more interesting ones per se. I don't think it's a forgettable story, but I think it's important because it's the first appearance of Sarah Jane Smith and the Centaurans. Yeah. I get this one a 9 out of 10. Yep. So yeah, that's a particular review. And that's pretty much it for this because I can't do it anymore because it's like 11 o'clock. So tomorrow, the only thing I'll probably do tomorrow is another Doctor Who review with another thing from John Pertwee. You'll find out which one it is, and it's quite interesting. It's from his last year of the run. Okay? Next video. Bye.